Make every night a wonderful journey, no matter where you are. Good night, sweet dreams. The first story. It wasn't Lavender Town. You know about Lavender Town. You know that the town's sorrowful music can tear out of the game, enter you through your ears, consume your head, and leave you screaming for the end, to stop the pain, stop the wailing of the dead that never ends screaming, until you find a way to silence it. I'm going to tell you a story. If you wish to aid yourself in setting the stage, go ahead and open a new tab, and bring up that music. Indulge yourself in its 8-bit horror. Just don't go wait on TV. Because I found the truly terrifying secret of the ghost town. Any innocent Pokemon fan, playing through red or blue, or if they live in Japan, green, could have figured it out. But they didn't live to bring the haunted truth to justice. I know I might be next, but I have to do this. For the good of you all. To save life, even. As I said, any innocent Pokemon fan, whether they're young or veteran, setting out on their first journey, or revisiting the franchise's roots, any one of them could have done it. We'll never know if they did, though. Well, will we? Let's begin. Said innocent fan has just made it through the rock tunnel, their team beaten and battered. Anxious for rest, they crawl to Lavender Town, and before they can shudder at the sounds that echo through the barren valley town, they drag themselves to the friendly, familiar Pokemon Center. Its own cheery music offers a sanction to the same. Temporarily, when they inevitably leave, they offer their ears and therefore lives to the spirits of Lavender, and there it stands, nestled away in plain sight. It grins, knowing that soon it's hungry. Roaring voices will be fed by the tender souls of the pure. And its watchful eyes observe, and the starving grey faces swoop almost too close, as the victim is unknowingly warned by a young child. That white hand on your shoulder, I'm just imagining it. But no, you mustn't leave, it beckons. The boy, blissfully ignorant, leaves the quiet town, and the anxious spectres sink back into their solitude and depression. But they know, inevitably, irrevocably, that their prey shall return, and they smile, full of malicious, sadistic hunger, and soon they can feel the return of the trainer's innocent presence. Yes, the boy moves closer, upon the maw of the secret, the wailing chorus of the town's song rising in a crescendo, as the unknown Pokemon fan steps inside, and they begin their song, shrieking like the brutal death of a banshee, a lost soul waiting for its pitiful death. It gets louder, and louder, and never stops. Its song it continues, until the screeching worms its way inside of you, and hooks painfully into your brain, and begins leeching off your life. The high-pitched chorus gives a wicked grin. Their prey has no escape now. The clueless child or even sees, and Pokemon fan still doesn't know, doesn't understand. I'm starting to get weak. I'm halfway through this stupid place, and for some reason, I'm not getting attacked by any wild Pokemon. I swear my character is walking progressively slower. The music is starting to get louder. It's beginning to give me a headache. But it makes me feel so twisted and vicious, and for some reason, I don't mind. A huge shiver racks my spine and I shake from it. I'm starting to feel chilly. My shadow, it's getting longer. The ghosts, the haunted inhabitants of this horrible place, begin their train if they're lucky. Their victim will be gone before they understand. Sometimes they do understand. Sometimes it all clicks. but they're already too far gone, and their last anguished thoughts gives the spirits a hearty meal. Never has one finally uncovered the secret before they were truly doomed. My side hurts it. It's getting hard to breathe. It looks like my character is moving at the normal pace again, and that I'm the one that's slowed down. I feel a cold draft and shudder again. I sense that arc rin staring at me. The music keeps playing, even as I battle these torch and alert it. That's all I can hear. By now I knew something was wrong, but I felt an nagging in my brain that told me to ignore it. Since that was the easier solution, I continued on. The ghost's wicked laughter makes up the chorus. The singing of the dying banshee, the screams of the dead POK moan, their wrath, their vengeance, their misery poured out into one awful serenade, with one message to join them in death. I reached the final floor, still no wild POK moan. Thinking back, somehow, I'm shocked. I never saw it before. Those who had died, they were all in Lavender Town. They were trying to leave, trying to get out of the real culprit's grasp, but they never made it. I stood on the final floor of the POK Moon Tower, alone in my room and in the dark. It is sometime past midnight. My head is pulsing with pain and I'm shaking from the cold. I wanted to go take some pills for the headache, but that would mean leaving my tiny, safe sanctuary. I pulled my soft blanket closer and tight around me, trying to get warm, and I'm quivering almost too bad to press the buttons on my Game Boy SP. It's still getting louder. Not break your eardrums loud. Loud in the sense that I heard. No, I felt the music coming from everywhere. There were low, deep whispers coming from it, and I went pale in fear. I make my way through the simple maze of the floor, and before I reach the staircase, it's too much. I'm so dizzy, and I didn't notice it until now. I'm not just shaking from the cold. I'm shaking from the pain this place is putting me in. I'm mired in the pure depression of its song. The screaming, wailing melody won't stop, and I don't think I'll try and make it, because I'm too weak. Why? Why am I so weak? The hungry, evil spirits laugh, cackle, and crow too loud, taunting, teasing, belittling. They are the loyal servants of the tower, stealing, always stripping their victims of sanity to feed their entity, the soul of the POK Moon Tower. It was the POK Moon Tower, and my game suddenly freezes. I can't move anywhere, but the tower's music continues perfectly from everywhere around me. I curl into a ball, shaking and crying, pleading for the end, begging for the insanity to stop. The whisper is rumbling and I can almost make out the word. I can't think right. Everything is getting foggy and murky, and I screw my eyes shut, and there they are. There they are. They're killing me, and everything becomes a cold black, the sound rising until it is the only thing I comprehend. It wasn't Lavender Town. It wasn't Lavender Town. It wasn't Lavender Town. The second story, love letters. Meredith was on her way to greatness. She had just finished college, had a nice apartment smack dab in the middle of a good neighborhood, and a sturdy job. Her neighbors greeted her warmly, and she felt accepted into the area quite quickly. One day, a few months after moving in, while checking her mail, she found a folded piece of paper, one someone had put there by hand. She unfolded it, revealing a love letter. Dear Casey, I've been noticing how beautiful you have been recently, your stunning radiance brightening up the neighborhood. I hope to talk to you again soon. S. A. Meredith blushed, even though this was obviously meant for someone else. It was flattering nonetheless, and despite the fact that the writer, named Saw most likely standing for secret admirer, was not one for words, it was still a sweet gesture. She attempted to find this Casey, but to no avail. Apparently, she ran off years ago with a boy, but Meredith continued reading them since there was no way to find this Casey. For the following months, Meredith continued to get these love letters. It didn't bother her much at first, due to the fact it seemed to only be a puppy love kind of thing. But the letters quickly turned obsessive sounding, saying things like, "You'll be mine one day," no matter what scared her after a while. Eventually, she stopped reading the folded papers and just started throwing them out as soon as she saw them in her mailbox. And within a few weeks, they stopped appearing satisfied that her obsessive secret admirer had given up. She relaxed again, falling into the flow of things as they were before. But one day, as Meredith stepped outside to retrieve her mail, a rock was on top of a folded piece of paper. She picked it up, and curiosity drew her to read it. "Dear Casey, why do you continue to not read my letters? I work very hard on them, and you just throw them out. Throwing my confessions of love out makes me angry. Getting me angry isn't a good idea. Meredith, the last person who got me angry ended up very, very badly." Meredith dropped the letter right there, not even finishing it, and bolted back inside, fearful for what seemed like a threat. Everyone in the neighborhood was so nice as far as she knew, and as far as Meredith was concerned, they wouldn't harm her. A memory reminded her of her ex-boyfriend and how obsessive he was over her, so she called him up and interrogated him about it, not accepting any answer until he admitted that he was saying those things. Eventually, he sighed and admitted it quietly, and Meredith, quite happy with herself, hung up the phone and went back to her room and peacefully fell to sleep. Meredith woke up, the sun shining in the early Saturday morning, reflecting off the white walls, making an angelic effect. She sat up, taking her time to stretch. She swung her feet off of her bed and planted them on the floor. She grabbed the empty coffee mug she had brought back to her room a few days ago and brought it with her to the kitchen. As soon as she turned the corner into the kitchen, she dropped the mug and it shattered, spraying the shards everywhere. There was a love letter carved into the wall. She couldn't bring herself to read it at first, but eventually, curiosity led her to look up. It was carved in shallowly, but wide. It came to her then. The love letter was carved with someone's nails. As she read the letter, some of the words didn't seem to be English, and at the end "Saw" as replaced with Samuel Alexander, a name quite commonly known in the area. Samuel was a man who lived in the next town over, who went missing 3 years ago after his ex-lover had cheated on him, and was eventually missing but presumed dead. But there was no notice of Samuel even living here, even when she did research on the house. She heard footfalls behind her, and she slowly turned around, not moving much, in fear of stepping on a piece of the muck. After noticing nothing was there, she turned back around, and right in front of her was a sickly, white, thin man, in nothing but ripped short shorts of the mug dug into his feet. But he didn't seem to mind. Meredith inhaled to let out a scream, but the man grabbed her and wrapped his hand around her mouth, spinning her so her back was against his chest. He was cold and smelled like a pond. Meredith didn't dare try to bite him to let him go. His stench and temperature worried her to do that. "It's okay, Casey. Samuel is here," he said, rocking her back and forth. "Now we can finally be together." Meredith shot her eyes around, trying to make sense of everything going on. But before she could even make a decision, something cold touched her neck, and pain soon followed it. Samuel's long, partially broken fingernails ripped through her neck as blood poured out. He pinched the major artery to her brain with her nails. Piercing isn't blood squirted out. He wrapped his arms around her and rocked her back and forth again. Meredith couldn't scream through the blood that was clogging up her lungs, and the world was quickly becoming dark. Then Samuel leaned in close and whispered, "Now we can be together, Casey." The third story. Did you like your present? Sarah and Alice were the best of friends. They did everything together. They were inseparable. They lived on the same street too. Almost every day they would hang out together after they got home from school. They were as close as friends could be. They shared the same interests and hobbies. Today was Alice's 15th birthday, and Sarah had to make it her best. The party was at Santa Cruz Beach Boardwalk, and besides Sarah, Jack was the only other person invited. Alice was in love with Jack ever since she first met him in 7th grade. She had a diary where she wrote how much she loved him and showed it only to Sarah, because she trusted her with everything. Sarah put on her pink polka dot bikini and observed herself in the mirror. She was very pretty and fit. She had golden brown hair with hazel eyes. She never used makeup because she had incredible natural beauty. She was very popular at school. But she ignored the popular crowd and all the boys for Alice. Sarah hurried out to her BMW and brought Alice's present with her, a photo of the two of them at Alice's last birthday party. Finally, Sarah arrived at the beach and met up with Jack and Alice. Alice was trying to make conversation with him, but when Jack saw Sarah, he jumped up out of his lounge chair to greet her with a tight hug. Sarah hugged back without hesitation, because she really liked him too. The rest of the birthday party, Jack hung out with Sarah. As Sarah began to forget about her best friend, Jack carried Sarah into the water with him, and they buried each other in the sand. They laughed and laughed while Alice stood in the shallow water of the ocean all alone. The more time passed, the closer and closer Jack and Sarah became. They started revealing their secrets, and the most shocking secret, Jack liked her. Sarah confessed her love for him, and they became boyfriend and girlfriend in an instant. After moments of serious love, they started to play around. Alice was sitting underneath an umbrella by herself and heard Jack sing, "Take off that polka dot bikini, girl." Alice was deeply hurt inside, but she just kept smiling. The party was coming to an end. Presents were already opened and pictures were taken. Sarah said goodbye to Alice. "Are you having a happy birthday?" "I sure am," she replied. Jack waved goodbye to Alice and gave Sarah a goodbye kiss. Sarah went home with a fluttering heart, and Alice with a broken one. School went on for weeks and weeks, and Alice's attitude began to change. She seemed happy about her best friend and her crush being together. Sarah noticed how Alice had so many mood swings. Alice seemed to be turning into a bipolar freak. Months and months of school went by and Alice started to become more normal. Sarah felt that everything has finally worn off on Alice. Sarah knew how Alice held grudges on people, insane grudges that would last years. But Sarah thought that because she was Alice's best friend that she was forgiven. Alice started hugging Sarah more and more, and she became even more open to her. For months passed now. It was a week, 'Until Sarah's birthday.' Alice was now totally normal. Sarah was happy. She was happy. Alice 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 was ha and as sweet as she was before the birthday party, she almost seemed sweeter to Sarah. "Sarah, I know that your birthday is coming up, so I am going to give you a present. I am going to tell you my deepest secret." Sarah was shocked to hear that her best friend used to cut herself because she felt like an outcast and was bullied. She said that the blood and pain made her feel good. She said she felt pleasure. She warned Sarah not to do it. "Do not do it to yourself, Sarah. I don't want you to hurt yourself, because I care for you. It is addicting, and it's very hard to stop. I had to go through therapy to finally stop doing it. I stopped cutting myself after a couple of months." Sarah was so shocked and couldn't relieve her mind of the scars on Alice's arms. That night, Sarah looked up online videos about self-harm. She noticed that all the videos had a strict warning: maybe triggering. "I won't be triggered. Why would I ever want to hurt myself?" Sarah thought. That night she took a hairpin and scratched at her arm until it was deep enough to leave a scab. She quickly disposed of the hairpin and then spoke not about it at school the next day. But the next night she peeled off the scab and made it bleed. She then scratched at herself again, but twice. She now had 3 streaks across her arm. She had been triggered, but she couldn't keep this a secret. She told Alice and she was very upset. "I can't believe you did this to yourself, Sarah," Alice yelled. "It is addicting. You'll do it again, and you won't even know you did it. Trust me, I've been there. It will get worse. You'll eventually start using sharper objects and you'll then dig deeper. Don't do that again," she yelled. Sarah promised Alice that she wouldn't do it again, but she didn't have the self-control to restrain herself. She broke the glass from a picture of she and Alice to use to scratch her arm. She could barely tell Alice, "Don't do that. You promised me you wouldn't. You are just gonna keep doing it until you have nowhere left on your body. Next you'll start cutting your legs," Alice yelled. Alice cooled down at the end of school. Alice offered to come and sleep over at Sarah's house. Alice managed to convince her parents to let her stay overnight on a school night. That night, Sarah felt confident with Alice sleeping in her room with her. She felt confident that she wouldn't do anything that night. She fell asleep rather quickly. In the morning, she felt burning on her leg. She went into the bathroom to change his. He was putting on her pants when she saw bloody streaks spelling HELPME on her upper thigh. There was a frown cut deep underneath as he was freaking out. Alice was right. This cut was definitely not made by a hairpin, and this was not repetitive scratching, it was a cut. Alice walked in when Sarah was cleaning up her leg. There were bloody paper towels on the counter. "Sarah, what did you do?" Sarah didn't know what she did. She didn't recall doing anything last night. Then she remembered Alice's warning. "You won't even know you're doing it." "Alice, you're right," Sarah cried. "I'm doing it unconsciously." Sarah started bawling. She was so scared she knew she needed help, but she didn't want it. "You can't tell anybody," Sarah warned. "Especially Jack," she cried. Alice promised not to tell, and then Sarah bandaged up her leg and went to school with Alice. Sarah felt so nervous about hurting herself. Then she went home after the school day ended and wrote 100 times, "I will not hurt myself," on her mirror. Because she was so scared, she tried to find the glass that she had scratched herself with. She took it and threw it out the windows. He saw it hit the tree and land in the bushes by her window. She called Alice, telling her that she threw away the glass. "I tossed it," Where? Out my window it landed in the bushes. I have to sleep now. I have a test tomorrow. Love you. Sarah, auntie, hurt yourself. Promise. Sarah hung up the phone before she could hear Alice's last sentence. She went to bed and fell asleep. She had the urge to go to the bathroom that night. She got up and relieved herself and went back to bed. She felt that Ralph, she forgot to close her window as he closed it, then fell asleep. Her mother came to wake her that morning. Sarah picked out her clothes and got in rest when she took off her shirt. She saw the discoloration of red on her pajama top. She looked down. The JACK was cut into her stomach in the middle of a heart. Surrounded by smaller hearts, the blood felt warm. It was relatively new. Sarah started bawling. This cut was deeper than the last. She needed to talk to Alice. She had to stop doing this. Sarah cleaned up and hurried to school. AGIN, Alice yelled. This is becoming too obvious. Look at all the cuts on you. I am going to sleep over tonight. I will end this, Alice announced. School went by slowly, and Sarah was becoming weak. Sarah had to wear layers of pants and shirts to keep the blood from bleeding through. Alice was welcomed into the house. She brought a party bag with her. It was Sarah's birthday. Sarah is really tired, so she better go to bed now, Alice told Sarah's parents. Alice and Sarah both got ready for bed. I promise this will end tonight. You're 100 sure? It has to end tonight, Alice. Yes. Sarah fell asleep quickly, but she saw Alice fall asleep first. That night Sarah had dreams. Nightmares. She was cut again on her wrist. The dream was almost real. She could almost feel pain. She woke up, sweating. She could barely move. She looked at her wrist and saw crimson blood gushing from her arm. Her vision was blurry. She could barely read HAPYBIRTHDAYSARH. It was cut and safely deepened in large letters. I am going crazy. Sarah thought the burning was worse than acid. Her arm was tingling. She was lightheaded. She was drifting. She had lost too much blood. Alice woke up. She had an eerie look on her face. A large smile crept up Alice's face. Sarah could hear this last sentence before her eyes glazed over. Happy birthday, Sarah. She laughed. Alice paused for a moment and admired her work on Sarah's body. Did you like your presents?